Hello everyone, and welcome to another Creative Design Team YouTube collaboration where this month we are focusing on birthday layouts. And I thought, why not do a birthday layout where we were actually all together and celebrated one of our birthdays. It was Katie Donaldson Taylor's birthday, very close to when we were away last year all together in Vancouver. And we surprised her with a cake. And I just love these candid moments and photos of when we brought in the cake and her surprise. And I wanted to put these in my album. So I've printed off the photos and you can see where we were staying. It was an absolutely gorgeous house and had an amazing view. But the walls and the curtains were very yellow and brown looking, and even the frames of the windows were brown as well. So they are not the best photos, but I think that sometimes happens when we're taking photos of birthdays. We're just snapping away because we want to capture the moment, and the delight on Katie's face and her surprise, I just wanted to record those moments. So I'm going to do a single page spread, and these are the moments you want to remember. I don't know about you, but quite often when I take birthday photos, they're not always the best photos, but they bring back so many happy memories. So I'm going to scrapbook those today, and I think what I'm going to do is go down a black and white path to try and tone down all the yellow here. So I'm going to bring in these heart dies here. They're actually the Hearts of Elegance dies, and I believe they're still available, and I will put a link to those below. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is this sort of a layout. Now, the photos are very strange sizes because I've had to crop them. I didn't want too much of the wall space behind here, but it was unavoidable here because I didn't want to crop Chelsea out of the photo and bring that down too much, because this is all part of the scene. And that's what we get a lot of the time with birthday photos. So Julie was taking them from this end of the table, and then Jama caught them from over the other side of the table. But I don't have actual photos of Julie, Erin and Jama, even though they were there. So I'm thinking I'm just going to do a little grouping like this and put a heart here and have my photos sort of in this formation with the heart off to this side here. And quite often I do this when I'm going to use a large die. I will put the actual die down on the page before I do any cutting. And I think what I'm going to do is bring that down a little bit. So I'm just going to bring in a black heart that I cut, because I think I'm going to go down the black and white path with this one. Rather than trying to pick up a color from these photos, I think black and white is going to work best. And I'm going to bring in an old 6x6 designer series pack. And this is one that I picked up quite some time ago and I've just had sitting there. It's totally all black and white patterns, and I absolutely love it. This is no longer available, but some of you might have picked this up. It was on special not too long ago, but it has since sold out. And it's called All Together, which is quite an appropriate name for this layout here, but I chose it mainly for the black and white images here. Now you can see some of the patterns here have got hand details on here, and I'm not necessarily going to use that, but I know that I've seen a lot of cards done with this where people coloured in the hands, had some of them holding some gifts and everything, and it was specifically a pack for making cards. I'm just going to turn this side over as well. There's another pattern here that's got hands and hearts as well. But what I love about this pack are the black and white patterns. And while I'm talking about cards, the Creative Design team are going to be hosting online classes in February for birthday cards. This is something that we have had requested many times, and we've decided that we're going to do it in February, which celebrates our 3 years of being together and starting our CDT Creatives membership group. And a lot of you know that we do an event in October, which is 31 days of Christmas cards. But in February, we're going to do birthday cards. It's going to be a little bit shorter of an event. There will be 14 days of full-length classes. They will include handouts, just like we do for our 31 days of Christmas cards. All of the videos will be pre-recorded, so you can watch it anytime. You don't have to keep up with a video each and every day. The event is going to run from the 15th to the 28th of February, which in the Southern Hemisphere will be from the 16th. So you can see some details up on screen now, but make sure you check the link below for all the registration details. It's going to be so much fun, and we can't wait to start sharing the birthday cards that we have been working on behind the scenes, and it will be fun running this event when it's actually our 3rd birthday this month. So back to my layout here, I'm thinking with the heart here, and I'll have my photos. This is like a little story as I was talking about before, and then this one's going to come down across here. And I've chosen 4 of those papers that I'm going to decorate this heart with. So I've got some heart designs, some dots and some stripes. So I think that's going to give a nice graphic sort of look to this. And just to make sure that this is what I want to do, I've just got them laid out in strips because I'm going to cut these down and make a heart out of them. And I think they're going to work really well without taking over from the photo rather than trying to bring in any colors. The colors of what we're wearing are actually quite muted. The brightest color is actually the drinks that we were having that Julie made us, and they were really delicious, but I can't remember what she put in them. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to put these off to the side here. You can see you get a lot of hearts with this. So I think I'm going to be bringing in a few more of these to scatter around the page. And this. So basically what I'm going to do is cut these down into 3/4 inch strips. I'm going to make sure that I cut my hearts in the correct orientation because I want to do them as strips going up this heart here. I'm going to need 2 of these, so they're all going to be 3/4 inch. That works out quite well with this heart because I've got 2 rows of patterns. And I'm not sure if I need 6 pieces or 5 pieces. I tried to do the maths and then I thought, oh, I'll just do 3/4 inch and then see how I go from there. I can't believe how much maths there is involved in scrapbooking. It's quite a lot. Not one of my favourite subjects now. However, I do like working in inches. I know I live in Australia, but I do love working in inches. So I'm just going to, I'm not going to adhere my photos just yet. I'm just going to bring in a piece of my all-purpose mat. I do have the Stampin' Up! Silicone mat. I could work on that, but the contrast here is just a little bit too dark. And I would love to have a larger one of these because my all-purpose mats, as you can see from Close to My Heart days, they have been used quite a lot. So what I'm going to do with this is cover it with adhesive. So I'm just going to put this all across, and you can see with the Stampin' Seal Plus, you have to hold it upright and then give a little bit of a flick when you're removing it because it is segments, but they will keep rolling out if you don't give that little flick action there. So I'm just going to start layering this up. Now the first one I'm going to do is going to be on my all-purpose mat so that I get it nice and straight. So I'm just lining up the point here of the heart and the point there. And this Stampin' Seal Plus is extremely sticky. So I want to make sure that I get this right so that they don't go all crooked as I go up the piece. So I'm going to use that to help me line this up. Make sure that I cover off right to the end here. I'm just going to come down a little bit and make sure that's nice and straight. And then once I've done that, I can start layering up all my other pieces. So I need to come off the edge here so that it runs right across the heart. And then I'm going to put the black and white hearts here. A bit harder to do things sometimes when you don't have your head all the way over the top. So you can see I've got a black base, a white base, a black base. And then I'm going for another white base. And then I'm going to go back to this one. And I could chop the end off this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough. So let's just see if that's going to work. I'm not going to do it neatly, but I don't think that's going to reach all the way across. It's not. So I'm just going to put that one across. And then I'm just going to put a little bit more adhesive on the top of this heart here. And put my hearts there, and then I'm going to loosely trim around the edges of this because I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine so I get a perfect heart rather than me trying to do this with scissors. Because of the curves here, I like to get all the help I can. So what I'll be able to do for this is actually turn this over, line up my heart and run this through my die cutting machine. Now I don't normally do die cutting on camera because it does make my table wobble a little bit, but I'm just going to do that today and I hope you forgive me if there's any shaking here. You need to get rid of any bits of paper that might be hanging around on your die cutting machine. This is a Stampin' Up! Die cutting machine and I absolutely love it. Have to confess, I bought the little mini as well, but I think the heart's a little bit too wide for that one. But that lives up on my table all the time, ready for me to use. So now I'm going to click this into place and I'm going to use a little bit of tape for this one. With this machine, I haven't used as much tape as what I normally do because things do tend to just sit nice and flat. But for this one, I want to make sure that I've got that in exactly the right place. Now, what I want to do is just angle a little bit so that these two top points aren't hitting the rollers at the same time. That can make it a little bit hard to roll through sometimes, and to make it easier, if you have them on an angle, that will work better. So I've got that through. We'll just get rid of this. Gently going to peel this tape back. Even though this is the back side, I still don't want to rip the cardstock at all. And there's one section that hasn't rolled through perfectly, so I'm just going to trim that off. I'm going to use this side as my guide. So there I have my heart. Let's see how that looks underneath those photos. I hope what I've imagined is going to work quite well. But I really love how this looks. That would look really cool on a birthday card as well. And you might have noticed when I was taking that off that it's not all perfectly aligned, but that might be because I didn't get my head over the top, or I should have probably attached the die while it was down here on my Versamat and then picked it up and put it through. So let's bring the layout in. Just put the heart down, and this is how it's going to look. So this is looking quite cool. So I'm loving this look, but the edges here go off into the white. So I'm just going to bring in my Memento ink and a little blending tool here. I'm going to go around the edges, but I'm not going to do this over the top of my piece here. You can see these do get a little bit rough, and I don't want to keep replacing these. They're still quite good to use, so I don't want any of the fluff going on here and me smudging it. So I'm just going to ink that up off camera. So this is looking pretty good. Now you want to go all the way around, because there are some areas where the white pattern on the black base does hit the edge. So when you ink up that's not going to just blend in with the background. So this is what I'm thinking of doing. So I need to adhere all of this down, but first I want to do some stamping with this Wildflower Celebrations. This is a scrapbooking stamp set, so it's part of the scrapbooking release, so you'll only find those items at the moment online, but it's one that you should check out because these are very versatile for scrapbook layouts, but you can always use these on cards as well. So I am just going to load these up on blocks and stamp them. I'm not sure if I need to use my spongy side or if I can do them straight onto my mat or onto my glass mat. But what I'm thinking is the Celebrate can go across the bottom. Now I did do a little bit of a dry fit before and I got my stamps out. So this is a word of caution. I don't know if you can see this, but some of my photo has come off here. Now I printed home and these are fairly new off the printer. But this is a brand new stamp set and it is very, very sticky. And when I laid it over top, you can see I've got the top of the L and the B there. That's okay because I'm going to stamp this and fussy cut it out. But for now, I'm just going to put it underneath here to show you this is where I was thinking of putting it. I'm not going to have too much over here. I'm going to have quite a bit of white space, but I might end up trimming down my white and putting a piece of black cardstock behind it. And I thought it might be fun to do a Let's Celebrate. So I'm going to do some stamp surgery here and just cut this bit off. And that's okay because when I'm putting these back onto a block, these will stick together quite easily. So I'll be able to line that up on a surface and put my block right down. So I'm going to do Let's, I'll probably stamp that directly onto my layout. And this one I'm going to stamp onto White Willow. And then I think this will be really cool just to do a little bit of journaling, which means I need to move things up just a little bit. I'm going to do all my stamping first. I might even use birthday memories. That might come off here. I'm not sure. Might be too many titles to put all of them on one page. So this is what I'm thinking of doing. Let's Celebrate and stamping this bit across the bottom. And then I'm going to look at maybe bring in some more of these hearts that I'm going to cut out with these pieces of paper here. Now I've mounted the Celebrate onto a block. And what you need to do with stamps, especially photopolymer stamps, when you're using them for the first time, is to season them, and that gets rid of some of the processing film that's on there. And the other thing you want to do is to practice stamping with it. Now, this is quite a big word, so using a larger piece will make it easier for me to cut it out. So I'm just going to see how that stamps up. And this is part of the seasoning process as well when you've got brand new stamps. So I'm getting there with this. Sometimes it takes several goes. And it does also matter how new your stamp is. So you can see that took 2 stamping offs before I got a good result here. So I'm just going to ink this back up again. Stamp this down and then leave time for the ink to absorb onto the paper. And that looks absolutely beautiful. And if it didn't look good, I would just turn my paper over rather than keeping on stamping down this piece here. And now I'm going to repeat the process with this label piece here. So I'm doing exactly the same thing. I haven't used this one before. I'm going to bring in the thinner piece because I'm going to stamp onto this one and cut this one out as well, rather than stamping it direct on page. Sometimes, just to take the pressure off, especially when it's a larger image and it's a new stamp, if I had done that straight onto my page, I would have got that section here. So that tells me I have to be a little bit more light-handed and not quite push down quite so hard. But I am using the soft side of my Versamat here because I've got this solid piece. Now, another trick that you can do, if you've got a solid piece, just make sure that you ink that up properly. If it doesn't quite stamp properly, you can always color it in with a marker. So this one is a better stamping than this one because I haven't pushed down quite so hard, but this area here is not quite so good. So what I can do is just come in with my Stampin' Write marker and go over top of that and colour it in a little bit, and nobody would know that the first lot of stamping wasn't so great. So let's do that on my piece of paper here, and I've got some smudges here again. So I'm just going to wipe those off and then re-ink up my stamp. So if you get frustrated with stamping sometimes, it just means that you just need to have a little bit of a play around to make sure with some stamps so that you get a good end result. So what I'm going to do is, this one I haven't put that much pressure on. I'm going to put a little bit more pressure down this end where this solid piece is. And you can see I've got a really good result with that. So that one is done. And I'm going to do one of these little labels as well while I've got everything out, because I might do a date or something like that in there, or a little subheading. So I'm just seasoning that up again. I'm going to do the same thing. Stamp off a few times until everything is nice and seasoned. So this is just the process. You don't have to do this each time, but if you go back later and you find that your stamp is not stamping properly, you might need to re-season it. This is such a cute little label, and I love how that looks. So you can see just by leaving the block down a little bit longer and letting the ink absorb onto the paper, you're going to get a better result with your stamping. So I'm going to fussy cut these pieces out, and then I'm going to start putting my layout together. I've got all my fussy cutting done, and I decided to mat this one onto some black cardstock because it just needed a little lift, and my Celebrate is going to go here and it will hide where I've damaged my photo. But I did want to show you how I'm constructing this page. So what I did was lay out all my photos, and I worked out where this one was going to go, and the heart can actually go partially over the top of this. But for the ones coming up this side, I wanted the heart to tuck under. So I started with this one and put that one down, and then when I adhered the heart down, I did use my T-ruler to make sure that I got these stripes nice and straight because I didn't want them to be all wonky across the page. So now I'm going to lay the next two photos down using my T-ruler as a guide and putting them down right up against that area there. Now I know I've got white mats on these and it's white against white here, but I actually don't mind that. I did want the white to separate from the heart element to the photos here. So now all I need to do is not move that one. I probably need to push that down a little bit harder, and then I can put this one down here. So now I've got all of those nicely lined up, and the heart tucks under some and over the top of others. Now my Celebrate's going to go here, and I've got the word Let's, and I'm going to stamp that in this little awkward corner. So when I printed these, I didn't make this photo the same height as that one, which was a little bit of an error, but I didn't want to reprint it. So what I'm going to do is just use that little corner to stamp the Let's, and then my Celebrate is going to nestle just in there as well. So I need to get my ink back out again. And I just want to do a little stamping run with this one, just like I did with the other items. Now this is quite a fine print, so I'm not going to turn this over to the spongy side. And I am going to get my head in the way here just to line this up. I'll edit that out and then just stamp that down, and that looks really good. I do love stamping directly onto my page, but I know some people are quite scared of doing it. If you do stamp on your page and you mess something up, I have done it several times where I've messed something up with my stamping and my page has just nearly been finished. I just cut a little piece of white paper, or I make it into a label, and then I'll stamp onto that and adhere it over the top. But don't be frightened to give it a go, because it just adds extra layers to your elements. So this is one that I want to get lined up as well, and I want to cover these two little whoopsies that I did here. And this one I think I might make into a little bit of a tag, and then to balance it off so that I've got black and white elements all in a little cluster down here, I might actually turn this one around that way and put the heavier black on that side. For some reason, this way it doesn't sit as well. So I'm going to punch a hole in the end of this. But I know I'm going to have to put something in the end of it, because this is Katie's birthday and I need to do that, because I know that she really doesn't like tags that don't have finishes on them. And then I'm going to think about what other hearts I'm going to use, because I can bring in some other little elements here to decorate this. I love this one that's got the detail on it, but it probably won't show up on black. So I'm going to have a little bit of an experiment and just cut a few of these out so that I can scatter them down around this corner here. I'm going to leave this area up here embellishment free. It's going to have some white space, and I love white space on layouts. So this is going to draw your eye down into this area where the focus is going to be on the photos. I've adhered my labels down, and I decided not to put any twine in this one because it was just a little bit distracting coming off the edge here. So I'm going to put a dot there instead. So I've got these classic matte dots, and I've lost my pick tool. There it is. And I'm thinking just a good old white dot over top is going to suffice really well for that part. And then I'm going to put some of the black ones and maybe some white ones around in some other areas. So I have cut two sets of hearts. Now I have used this size for the black sort of layer, and I've used this one that has the little piercing detail on it on the lighter colours, because you're going to be able to see that better. If I'd used that on the black, they sort of disappear. So I'm keeping the heart with the heart and layering that up on top, and you can see how beautifully the piercing detail shows with the black underneath it. So I just need to adhere these pieces together. I'm going to put this one up quite a way, and that also, maybe I'll cover the bit of the laptop there. I think that looks quite good. And then this one can come up a little bit. It's going to slide a little bit underneath that C there. And I think basically this page is looking pretty good just like this. And on the other side of this page, I'm going to have photos of us all around the table. Usually if we'd been out for lunch, we had a very sort of light meal or a little bit of a grazing thing happening with some healthy vegetables and maybe some dip and things like that. And I've got photos of us all around the table. I'm thinking that is going to be on the other side of this. But I just wanted to focus today on doing the birthday layout because that's the theme of our collab. So I'm just putting a couple of these little dots around, making everything look like it belongs. Do I put one here? Do I put one here? Sometimes this is the hardest part of the layout. So I've got a group across here. I think I need to put another one in this little part here. I'll just choose a larger one. I love these dots. I'm not sure if these ones are still available. They might not be. I'm not sure if I'm going to back this with a piece of black. Maybe what I will do as I go off in a tangent is just add, I'm going to try this, see if this works. I might just add a couple of torn edges in here because I think that might just finish this off nicely. Now, when you're doing something like this, usually what I do is tear away this piece and put the black from behind the pieces. So I'm going to hold this up so that I can have a look rather than it being up against my black mat here and see if I like that. I do quite love that. So I am going to tear away the white, I think. I don't like it sitting on the top. So basically I'm just tearing into my paper and making sure that I come back so that it is on an angle here. I'm going to put another one down in this section here. I can always add more if I need it. And I don't know if you're like me, but I have a whole bag here of black offcut pieces. So I'm just going to grab a scrap out of that because these come in really handy. And then I'm just going to trim that down and adhere it from behind. I think I like the look of that better than just plonking a piece of black cardstock over the top. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. Now I do know that I've got quite a bit of depth there. I think I want to increase this one just a little bit. So I can just come back in and tear a little bit more away. And see if I like the look of that. That looks much better. And do the same thing and adhere that on this side. But I quite like it with the solid black coming through. If I put pattern here, because there's a lot of white space here, it might have detracted from the actual piece. I should have held a little bit up so you could see. If I put a piece up here like that, you can see that if that is there, that is drawing my eye up to the top of the page rather than it just coming down here. So sometimes a solid cardstock will work better. It just depends how many photos you've got on your page and how full your layout is. But I absolutely love the clean and classic look to this. It's quite a graphic, simple page, but it packs a punch. And I'm just focusing on these fun photos and how delighted Katie was when we brought a cake out for her to celebrate her sort of birthday but non-birthday because we were that close to her actual day. So make sure that you check out the other Creative Design Team girls with their birthday layouts. I will have a link to the playlist below. It will be going for about a week. And remember that registration will be closing for our birthday event. I think it's the 15th of February. So the 16th in the Southern Hemisphere. We would love to have you join us for our very first birthday online class event. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. As always, happy crafting and bye for now.